Hello students, so today we will discuss probation and parole under criminology and penology. So probation and parole are two alternatives that are used for offenders to give them to the incarceration wherever the conduct of offender is where the conduct is supervised according to the law. So these are the alternatives to the incarceration, and the conduct of offenders in this kind of alternatives, it is supervised by the law. So probation can be understood as a penalty that is imposed by the court. Uh, in this, the criminal offender is not detained, but he is allowed to remain in the community with the promise that he will be at his good behavior, and there is a supervision officer, probation officer who is on a supervision to such kind of a criminal offender. In contrast to probation, parole is a supervised release. So in this, the inmate is released from a jail, and this release is either temporarily or permanently, and it is done before the completion of the sentence of such inmate with the subject to good behavior. Difference between probation and parole is this, that the meaning of probation is a suspension of a sentence of an offender, and allowing that offender to stay in the community with the good behavior and under the supervision of an offender. In parole, it is an early release of a convict before his or her sentence expires, and in this, he is given the rest of the portion of his sentence as a to serve the community with insurance of good behavior and with specific conditions. Probation is determinative in nature, and parole is administrative in nature. Probation is an alternative to jail, but parole is a conditional release from a jail, from a prison. And probation is imposed by the court, parole is imposed by a parole board. Probation is done prior to the incarceration, whereas parole is done after the offender has completed a certain portion of his prison sentence. Probation is allowed to the first time offenders and criminals that does not in crimes that does not involve violence, and parole is the for the criminals that are already under detention. Offenders to report in probation is probation officer, and in parole is parole officer. So these are the definitions that are given about probation. So probation can be termed as a release of an offender from a police custody subject to a good behavior of the convicted offender under specific circumstances. It is considered as the supervision period, and in this period the offender has to follow certain rules like non-consumption of drugs and alcohol, counseling, uh, reporting to the probation officer, doing community service, counseling, jail time, and forth. And a person who is granted probation, when he is found guilty for commission of an offense in which the accused is not sent to jail, rather he is allowed to stay in the community, provided that he should adopt a ethical conduct and should not commit any crime in future, or else he will be sent to the jail. Parole is meant for the grant of release to the convict only when he has served a part of his punishment in jail. In this, the prisoner is temporarily or permanently released from the jail, and he has to be in a good with the certain conditions that are given by the parole board. Conditions are basically for the safety of the members of the society, and in these conditions, it is like appearing before the parole officer whenever called upon, whenever needed, obeying the law, restriction on the consumption of alcohol or drugs, avoiding contact with certain people, restriction on leaving the specified geographical area without the permission of the officer, getting employed. So while on parole, the convicts are not considered as free from their sentence, so they can be called back to the jail. They can be sent back to the jail if they don't follow the conditions, and rather they have to serve the community and rehabilitate themselves and comply with the rules specified. Thank you.